why not sit back, relax, and take things easy like a Sunday morn? I'm your host, Shane Lockwood. This is episode 59, and today is the 28th of August 2016. I'd like to thank everybody who listens to this podcast each and every week, and I want to welcome you aboard if you are listening for the very first time. If you'd like to support this podcast for free, what you can do is click like, click share, click any little love heart icons, thumbs up, etc. Leave reviews on iTunes, or if you'd like to do it financially, you can do it through Patreon or PayPal, and the details are in the description box. That is entirely voluntary. My focus is not on money, my focus is on podcast survival. A lot of podcasts die because they do not get the support and the feedback that they need. A simple comment, a simple like is all it takes to keep me going. And there's a few people that I do need to thank in that regard. People like Reggie Ragsdale, people like David Miller, people like Shannon from SBK Air Conditioning for the loan of a laptop, which allows me to record a full 30-minute podcast. No thanks to Spreaker and their silly new rules and their cost-cutting measures, trying to kill a lot of the podcast community. But that means I may have to pay for space at some point in the future, hence the Patreon account, the PayPal account, etc., etc. But if you want to contribute, you can, for free, liking, sharing, talking about the program. I may have merchandise at some point, like coffee mugs and things like that, but the profit margins on that are not the best. But it's just a bit of fun. Hopefully you can tell your friends about the podcast while having your favorite beverage in the easy like a Sunday morning coffee mug or something like that. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I thought about getting t-shirts printed up, but I don't know how popular they would be. If I was getting 1,000 downloads per episode, then maybe I'd consider things like that. But we're moving on. Thank you guys for doing that. All the likes, the shares, the comments and things like that do keep this show going. If you don't know what this is about, sit back, relax, your favorite armchair, couch, sofa, wherever, in your bed. Just sit back and relax, maybe with your favorite beverage or snack. And we're going to let go of all the drama of the previous week. We're going to let go of all the potential worries that Monday morning holds. And we're going to just embrace the feel of a Sunday morning before people have to mow their lawns and do all the things that they do on a Sunday morning. And take that tranquility and peacefulness and try and share it and carry it through to the rest of the week, so that when you come back again to this podcast, you hopefully should be less stressed than you were the week previous. If you are sitting at a kitchen table, please feel free to take notes, record the code word. For those of you who are new and don't know what the code word system is, it just lets me know who listens all the way to the end, and it helps you guys with a little bit of interactivity, just to let me know who you are, where you're from. Please leave in the comments where you're from if I don't know who you are, if you're listening to this for the first time. I don't know if this is having an impact on you at all. Feedback saved the show. Feedback quite literally brought this show back from the brink. Generous donations of various tech equipment and advice have brought this show back, and it made it a better show overall. So thank you guys for that, and you get to share in that benefit of helping me out, helping you out. It sort of feeds on itself and it gets bigger and better. And one of the problems I have now is that Spreaker is cutting back the free storage space because they're trying to, I don't know, support their drug habit or something. I don't know. but it also means that I can only record 15-minute podcasts through their app. So I'm doing this manually through a laptop and things like that. So donations do help. If you have a computer at home, if you have any data at all that you like to keep your favorite photos, family albums, please back up your software, all of your photos and stuff, data, everything. Do it now, please. Save your stuff. If you are listening to this show while jogging, please use it as a 30-minute timer. You can use whatever you want, whether you're doing the dishes, whatever you're doing. You can use this podcast just as a bit of a zone out. I find it very humbling to know that there are people who live for this podcast. They want this podcast, they want it 30 minutes, they want it to reflect whatever it is that they want to do with it. Please leave feedback and comments letting me know what you do while you're listening to the podcast. Leave the intimate marital stuff out of it if you're listening to this while you're doing that. Geez. Maybe you listen to this in the afterglow of doing that. I don't know. But I've got a whole heap of stuff that I wanted to talk about, and I've got a bit of a story, and I don't know how to tell it properly. I've tried several times, and it's not coming out the way that I want it to. Anyway, a couple of weeks back, on the 19th of August, I went to the Thinkers and Drinkers in the Pub meeting. It's for sort of skeptics, but it's not really. Anybody can go there. It's not about pushing any religious agendas. You can talk about whatever you want, just meet new people. It's at the Benjamin Hotel on Franklin Street. I'm not sure which week of the month it's on. I think it's maybe the third Friday of the month. Anyway, it was a very loose atmosphere because the organisers were overseas, so everybody got to catch up, and I got to mingle with pretty much everybody that was there, except for like 3 or 4 people, but that was because I had to leave and catch the last train home. In catching the last train home, however, I ran into a guy I call Pinkbeard, and we had a bit more pleasant interaction. I think he's hopefully forgotten who I was, although I did see him pull out his phone at one point and update Facebook, no doubt about me. But anyway, he no longer has the pink beard, and he's still rough as guts anyway. But the story is not about him. He was up the back of the carriage, one of the carriages. There's 2 carriages, 2 trains put together. Anyway, there was this drunk guy who was fairly well dressed. Anyway, he decides to go, while the train's in motion, decides to go through the doorway connecting the 2 trains. Now, in the past, there was no real issue, but now it's against the law to do it, and you can be fined for doing that. So he did that. Anyway, he was followed very closely by 2 security guards, and their altercation was the most hilarious thing you could imagine. This guy was saying, well, what's your name? He was saying this to the security guard. So, what's your name? I don't recognize your authority. Does your badge have your name on it? And all this sort of stuff, all this conspiracy stuff. And we were just kept laughing our heads off, me and Pinkbeard, just laughing our heads off this, and it was getting weirder and weirder. This guy was he was being questioned, and the security guard tried to trap him into saying that he was a police officer and all this sort of stuff. So he goes, oh, you'll have to get off at the next station. So they kick him off the train at the next station. He gets off one carriage, goes to the back carriage and back onto the train again, and tries to hide from the security guards. And they're watching him the whole time. So I said, why don't you go back into the back carriage and just say, oh, tickets and passes please, and see what happens. So everybody's laughing their heads off, and they ended up having to call the police in and fine the guy for basically breaking the law. The guy's drunk. The security guards, to their credit, handled the issue with diplomacy, and Pinkbeard said, oh, you should have just beaten this crap out of him. But that's Pinkbeard for you. Rough as guts, but fake as anything. And what have I been doing? I finished a game, actually finished several games on the PlayStation, one of which was called Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt. And that's a very, very good game. It's got very high-end graphics. I was very impressed by it. It's a role-playing game, very similar to Red Dead Redemption in the way that you play the game and a lot of the Grand Theft Auto games. But it's set in basically a fantasy setting of where the technology level is about that of the 1500s. So you're talking about swords and sorcery and killing dragons and monsters and things like that. But there's a lot of humor in it too. The acting is very good. The storylines were very adult and dark and things like that. There's a few sex scenes and things like that in it as well. But that was really, really good game. I think it might win Game of the Year. I don't know, but it's up there. I downloaded a DLC, a downloadable content for Fallout 4 called Far Harbor, and that was like a really good storyline. You're given a harpoon gun as a reward, and that is probably the most goriest lethal weapon in the game. You can shoot people in the eye with it, and it's pretty gory and pretty bad. You can do some pretty nasty screenshots. Some of them are so bad I couldn't share them to Facebook or Twitter. I've got no idea how to get them off of the PlayStation and onto my computer without offending a whole heap of people. So we'll look into that. What else did I finish? I finished the first 3 games of Uncharted. Uncharted is a series of, there's 4 games all up, and the latest one I haven't looked at because I'd have to pay full price for. But these are like a platform adventure game, a little bit like Indiana Jones. This guy trying to find the treasures of Sir Francis Drake. See, he's a descendant of Francis Drake, and he goes around trying to solve puzzles and things like that, and shooting bad guys and whatnot. Very James Bond, very Indiana Jones, very action-packed, and very much like Tomb Raider in that kind of game and play platform jumping sense. The other game that I've been playing a lot is No Man's Sky, and this game I absolutely love. Now, critics have panned it, and I think that a lot of the gripes that they had are actually very justified. The game is not multiplayer in a stricter sense, but you can see the actions of other players when they go about. It's a space exploration game, so you explore planets and you warp into planets, hyperspace into planets, solar systems, and there's literally 18 quintillion planets to explore. You jump into a solar system, you either park at a space station or whatever, and you land on a planet, and you can explore myriads of creatures and aliens. There's 3 different alien races with their own languages, and they are different factions. However, they don't actually do anything. Originally, they were going to be against each other, and you could join in on space battles and things like that. But that's one of the gripes that didn't happen. Multiplayer didn't happen. But the alien faces, what got me was the fact that each of the aliens have a specific look, but there are variations in their facial generation, whether they have facial piercings or horns or mandibles or teeth or various kinds of eyes and eye colors and markings on their skin and things like that. That's all randomly generated, and I think that was very, very professionally done. A lot of the creatures that you find on planets are wild and varied. Some are plant life, some are things that hop, blobs that jump around, some are dog-like creatures, some are a mixture between a T-Rex and a giraffe, or snails and spider-like crab things. Some of them are carnivores, some of them are herbivores. I actually saw a carnivore chase one herbivore, give up when the herbivore found a hiding spot. It found another herbivore, chased it down, killed it, and I felt really genuinely sad for that herbivore because, wow, the AI was stunning. And I've just downloaded the recent patch. There's a lot of bugs in the game and it does crash occasionally, but the graphics are okay. A lot of people are actually complaining about the graphics and this, that and the other, and they're attacking the producer of the game, Sean Murray, because he had made a whole heap of promises that he didn't really deliver on because the scope of the game is so big. But what they got right is actually fantastic. There are two paths in the game that you can follow. One is the path of Atlas, and I basically got up to the very last point where I didn't have enough of these Atlas spheres things that you use as currency for Atlas. You need 10 of them, and what that does, once you get 10 of them and you find the last access point, it opens up the next galaxy. And a lot of people have overlooked that when they were reviewing the game. They don't understand that. The other path, what I did, I got to that point and I turned away, and the option to continue on that path is then removed. And then you've got no choice but to either just explore or head towards the center of the galaxy. And a lot of the complaints against the game are that when you just try and head towards the center of the galaxy, the game plays an animation where it pulls back from the center of the galaxy, and then the game sort of starts again, and a lot of people felt disheartened by that. But I think one of the restrictions that the developers had was a time constraint. If they were given another year, I think they would have polished it up a lot better. And hopefully with the 1.07 patch, they fixed a lot of issues, but I'm hoping that they do eventually fix the game to the point where they can incorporate the features that they did actually promise. By itself, if you were to split up the individual components of the game itself, whether it's the creature generation, whether it's the space exploration, whether it's the alien races and their facial generation, and you made a game where you could actually make your own creatures and things like that, I don't think there would be as much backlash as there was. I think that if they lowered the price, $60 US is a bit much for a game that has that many bugs and things like that. Don't pay $100 for Australian. I paid 78 for it at Big W, and I was smart to do that because I got a good couple of weeks of solid enjoyment out of the game, and that's more than I can say for a lot of games. A lot of games you can play them through and you'll be finished within a week, whereas this, there's always something new to explore, different creatures to see, and I can see the paths that other players have taken. They've beaten me to certain points and they've named planets before I could get a chance to, and things like that. So you can name planets, you can name creatures, you can name solar systems and things like that. What you can't do is name ships. There's a huge variety of ships and guns and weapons and those sorts of things. The stuff that you would expect in a really cool game. What it doesn't do is have a living, breathing space universe with factions actually doing things and space battles and those sorts of things. You do come across space pirates and you do have to defend yourself against them, and they can kill you and things like that. But artistically, it's a success, but decide for yourself. I'm not going to go on about the game much longer. There's a whole heap of trailers. The new Red Dwarf Season 11 trailer came out, and I'm really looking forward to it. The actors look a bit older. They've upgraded the production values. The special effects look amazing. I'm just hoping, and also they've gone back to the old style humour where they're insulting each other and things like that. So I can't wait for that. The 22nd of September for Red Dwarf. There's the Ash vs Evil Dead Season 2 trailer, which is excellent. Do check that out. Lucy Lawless looks fantastic. I'd love to know how she comes back, because she quite literally went to hell at the end of the first season. In fact, all hell broke loose at the end of the first season, so we'll see what happens. What else was there? Rogue One has a second trailer, which was amazing. Had Darth Vader at the end, so that Darth Vader is going to be in the movie. Not much. I think they're just teasing him a little bit, so that he's not going to be overshadowing the original trilogy. Yes, that's the other thing. With Rogue One, I am a little bit annoyed with a lot of these science fiction movies of late being set at nighttime. They're in space at nighttime with really dark ships and very little lighting. Star Trek Beyond was a great Star Trek movie. It harkens back to the old sort of original series and things like that. But there are scenes where it's quite literally too dark. And I was watching the movie with 3D glasses, and that darkens the screen more. So I don't know. I'd probably have to watch it again in another format without 3D, in 2D, and maybe I might enjoy it a lot more. But Rogue One as well has X-Wing fighters flying through a valley at night time, which is a great CGI effect, but it just looks like it's going to be another one of these sci-fi movies set at night in space and poorly lit. So obviously it's going to be very, very dark. Daredevil, the second series, suffered from that. Second season, it actually suffered from being underlit, even though they were fighting at night. All it takes is a very small LED to shine on the character, and the program would be improved immensely. What else is there? Let's see. Oh, a bit of scientific news. Dairy food does not cause inflammation or phlegm issues unless you have an allergy or are lactose intolerant. So people need to stop demonizing milk, dairy, cheese, and so on and so forth. If you have a lactose intolerance to or an allergy to these things, please see a doctor for alternative advice. What else are we going? Oh, there was a bit of controversy with Leslie Jones and the Ghostbusters reboot. I did see the movie, and it was watchable. It wasn't overly funny. I didn't laugh out loud once. I think the problem with the movie is that it tried to be both serious and silly at the same time. If it was just a straight serious Ghostbusters movie and they didn't try to enforce the humor, it would have been a lot better. If it was a straight spoof Wayans style scary movie spoof, then I would have known what I was getting. It tries to do both, and it sort of falls a little bit flat, and it pretty much insults the fans of the first Ghostbusters movie, unfortunately. And then you had cameos of the original actors, and they could act better than the new cast, unfortunately. I think Ernie Hudson did the best performance out of the lot, and that's not until the end of the movie. And he's only got a few lines, and the original cast really didn't want to be there, which is unfortunate, really, because they could have reprised their roles or done a whole heap of stuff. What else? Hungry Jack's, which is the Australian equivalent of Burger King, for some reason no longer has free drink refills. or at least there isn't somewhere where you can refill your drinks, and they no longer have power outlets. This is a multi-million-dollar company. Why are they being so stingy? Obviously, someone's wanted a promotion, thought about how they can save money, and then used it to screw over pretty much everybody. What I'd like to do is talk about a few other things. There's a brilliant YouTube series from a good friend of mine named Dr. Lemur, Lemur, and he has done a series called Medzy's America. That's Medzy. It's brilliant. He went to America after being deported, I think, a good 8 years ago, and that criminal record for just being kicked out of America because he tried to enter America through non-traditional means, and there was a bit of racial profiling and stuff that happened. He sued them and won his right to go back to America. He went to Los Angeles, and he was held there for 4 hours while they checked his records again, and eventually they saw reason and let him in, and they've actually given him a special way entry point into Los Angeles next time he goes back, and hopefully he'll go back more and more. But he recorded his adventures traveling across America from Los Angeles to New York, and it's, I think, a 10-part series, but he's got to edit quite a fair bit. He's got 8 episodes up already, so go and check that out, Medzy's America. Please, if you do watch his videos, tell him that Shane Lockwood sent you, and give his videos a thumbs up. They deserve a lot more views than they are getting. I think they're getting like less than 100 views or something like that, but that he has a great sense of humor, and he'll show you parts of America that you're not really familiar with. He feigns a lot of ignorance, but I think he knows a lot more than that he lets on. But I don't know whether he's ignorant or not. I don't think so. I've met him in person. He came here to Adelaide, and we had a few drinks at a local pub. He's a great guy, and he deserves all the support in the world. Another guy that needs a bit of a boost, I think. I really enjoy what he does in terms of podcasting, and his name is Adam Koci. I think it's Koci. It's spelt Koci. I'd rather pronounce it that way than any other dirty ways. But he does a podcast called Podcaster Non Grata, and it is adults only. There's a bit of swearing, but it's not over the top. There is some adult humor in it, but it's absolutely hilarious. He talks about things like depression and whatnot, but in an amusing way. He does a lot of his own voices and characters and mixes and matches, and puts a lot more editing into his podcast than I ever could. I just did not have the equipment to be able to do it. I do now, thanks to generous sponsors of this particular laptop by SBK Air Conditioning. Hint, hint, hint. Get your air conditioners checked out regularly. And also, I wanted to talk about, it's brilliant. You should check out his podcast. I can't wait. He releases them like once a month or so, and Spreaker has done the dirty on him as well. Oh crap, I've got less than a minute to go. But the music for this episode is through Incompetech and Kevin MacLeod, and the Fire and Sky guy, that Travis Walton, he is a charlatan. Anyway, I hope that you take today and the rest of the week easy like a Sunday morn. Please consider funding this podcast through Patreon or PayPal, or if you can't, just click like. Follow this on iTunes, subscribe on whichever podcast aggregator that you particularly like to use. It's been an absolutely fantastic episode. Thank you for joining me. I finally get to do another brilliant 30-minute podcast, and that's it from me.